Okay, let's add some adrenaline to Fearfest, and the guy who will help me to do it is Bruno from Blazing Beat Games, the developer of the game with such amazing title, Nightmare Reaper. Hi Bruno, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. What about you?
I'm super excited to speak with you about your game Nightmare Reaper. Sorry, that was the last time I'm doing it. I just love this title because your game is a boomer shooter, so retro style FPS. And the question I have to you is very simple. Why? Why doing such game today? Because we have all those game engines when we can create, even indie developers can create shooters with realistic graphic, and yet you decided to make it retro style. What is so cool about it?
Well, it is retro style, but there are still a lot of like modern effects that I put on these graphics. For example, there's dynamic shadows, there's bump mapping, and like bloom, volumetric fog, and all that stuff. I love sprite-based shooters. I've always loved them. I think they age beautifully, unlike some of the low poly games of old times. But yeah, I just love how it looks. I love pixel art. It feels great also. Like a sprite is a more generous hitbox, so it's kind of like easier to hit. And you can also do so much more with sprites. Like you can dismember them, you can break them apart, you can add all kinds of satisfying animations that are sometimes harder to do or not as satisfying with 3D models, because it's pretty hard to break up a 3D model and for it to look great unless you do like just like in retro games, just jibs that fly off everywhere that just look like meat cubes. But with sprites, you can actually like make the leg fly apart, and you see the leg, and it's very satisfying. It's a retro shooter, so I need to make it look retro.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inspired by games like Doom and the build engine games like Duke Nukem, Blood, and all that stuff, which is the games I loved as a kid, and I still do actually. So that wasn't even a question. I was gonna do sprites from the get-go, and we had a bunch of effects in Nightmare Reaper where we kind of play with the fact that they're paper, like just a flat piece of paper moving around. Sometimes they cut, sometimes they fall over and bounce all over the place. Since the game is happening in a dream, we can do some pretty crazy stuff. It's no joke to make actually like enemies with pixel art and sprites, because you have to draw an insane amount of frames of animation, and we're doing it all in Nightmare Reaper by hand. So you see the front of the enemy, the side of the enemy, the back of the enemy, and then let's say he has 4 frames in his running animation. You have to do these 4 frames for each faces. So it multiplies the amount of animations you have to draw by hand, and this takes a long time.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah. Smarter people would make 3D models and then take pictures of them in all the angles. But I don't think it actually looks as good as just making them by hand, where you can like put so many details. What's great about the game is that it's totally unique, and if you're bored of just the same games being recycled over and over, you're gonna find something truly different with Nightmare Reaper. And if you like retro shooters, if you like roguelites, if you like looter shooters, there's going to be something for you in there. And just everything about the game is made to be addictive and satisfying. The shooting feels great. You're always working towards some kind of progression. You're never wasting your time. So I highly recommend you check it out. How does my setup look?
I love your wall. I love this template.
That's my house.
For the next 30 seconds, you can tell whatever you want about your game. Like, if you like that games, play Nightmare Reaper, or just play Nightmare Reaper because it's great. Just your own words.
The game's terrible, don't play it. But no.